this is an opinion article. How do they define?
Well, it's reporting on a study they did.
This is a press release.
Yeah, UMD-led studies reporting.
So let's start here.
Succinct for you.
My argument is based on. Let's start with what an ideology is.
No, but see, you keep going back to provocative examples of individual acts of violence. The reason when you start listing off instances, I know because I've been in these debates before how people react when I give you particular examples. It becomes about that example and see that's the only thing that you could bring up or whatever. I don't want to do that. I would rather just make it about the data. Let's analyze level-headedly, and let's also acknowledge this disagreement doesn't take away from opposing individual acts of violence.
What left-aligned groups do is say that everything outside of us is right-wing, and then you're
just asserting that without any data at all or any.
I just asked you how you define right-wing, and you couldn't do it.
I want to make sure that we're accurate to the studies that I'm referring to. You have a report on it that I'm sure helps to specify that. And if you would find some effort that we're misdefining types of violence, then I'd love to explore that.
I think there might be a little bit of missing the forest for the trees here. Although I would say in the study earlier, it said Islamist protests might be responsible for more violence than left or right protests. I think we're
actually does. Did it? Far and wide have received the most research and policy attention, especially singled out for the deadly attacks, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's not surprising.
I think we're coming on a culture of people and extremists who would be okay with political violence. And we're seeing this kind of culture of assassinations come up, I think, more and more in our culture.
But just really quick, can you name any other political violence on the right other than J6?
He just listed off a bunch of examples.
I listed a couple of groups, the 3%.
No.
Let me just do this.
Hold
on, guys.
I'm
gonna do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this.
I almost had a principle.
Here's how it's defined. This is the ADL's heat map tracker for violent extremism. Right wing, white supremacy. Right wing, white supremacist. Neo-Nazism. Right wing, anti-government. Right wing, other. Islamist, left wing. Right wing, anti-government. Right wing, political, unknown other. Where's left wing anti-government? It's not a faction. Why is white supremacy and anti-government both considered the same thing?
Oh, but left wing only has one category. You could maybe hover over the I to get more information, but it's specifying between the different types of right wing.
Yeah, white supremacy and anti-government are two totally different things, and left-wingers can be anti-government too.
Of course.
So then why call anti-government right-wing twice?
Well, like if there's an anti-government leftist who attacks a right-winger for a political reason, that would be categorized under left-wing violence.
So right wing, what defines someone who is then anti-government solely? Why would that be labeled as right wing? And how do you determine whether
who's there are right wing anti-government ideologies, right? That are of a right wing nature.
What does that mean? Right wing nature?
Like if you have a left wing libertarian versus a right wing libertarian.
What does that mean?
There's differences. I'm gonna botch if I start defining libertarianism.
Well, if you don't know, what are you arguing?
No, I'm arguing that the only research we have bolsters refutation of
what percentage of professors are
ideology.
Liberals?
But you could absolutely.
What percentage of professors are liberals?
A bunch.
95?
A bunch. I don't know.
95? So this is the problem we have. Yeah.
What is going on?
Let me explain it to you. So
you're just like.
He's asking you a question.
I'm asking you a question.
No, I get that. I'm not a master on how these studies methodologies.
You don't know.
Down, but your only evidence is I saw some violence.
No, hold on. That's sophistry. I didn't say my only evidence was me making asking
okay, so then what's something not anecdotal that substantiates your argument?
Which portion of my argument? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So instead of just individually, I'm doing,
let's go to
against this violence. You're making it about a left wing.
Yeah, let's go to like the RNC protest in 2008, where a bunch of guys got arrested for having firebombs. They were left wing individuals. The way that was organized was that the moderate, good Democrats that you're referring to intentionally organized what they call green zone, yellow zone, red zone. The red zone actors were people who were intending on using extreme violence, including lethal force, and they needed the green zone individuals to provide the mass bodies to hide from police. I'll give you an example from something. So that's an actual incident that occurred. Again, and so this is I'm a regular old Democrat. I'm not far left. I'm not a socialist. I'm coming to protest Republicans.
You're doing it again. That's just a random example. I don't get caught up in individual provocative anecdotes. I would just like to look at a level-headed, zoomed-out, data-based argument.
Okay, so the problem we have here is that when you pull up the sources you claim, there are no conservative sources countering left-wing sources.
I mean, okay, then that's an interesting argument.
So if you can't define what
any data that stop it. If I
stop what? Define it. Define it. Stop define right wing.
If I took the time to properly write out a definition of a right wing ideology, I could present that to you.
I can.
But I don't want to get it wrong, and so I'm not going to throw something out that I didn't know I was going to define right wing. But what I do know,
you don't know,
is that your argument of literally saying any data that I disagree with is too liberal is like, yeah, all right, I heard that about crime increasing. I heard that about everything.
You're misrepresenting my argument. My argument is right now I have pulled up the ADL as a source in your favor. However, it has six categories of right wing and one of left wing. Now, how does that make sense? How can we quantify an ideology if there's 6 versions of right wing? Which one is actually the right wing, and how come left is one parent organization? I would actually argue the ADL sides with me in saying left wing encompasses all of it. That means if you're a Democrat, a progressive, a communist, a tanky, an anarchist, any action you take is left wing, and it's all the same ideology. Is that the ADL's argument here?
Well, maybe that in its categorization is an easier way. If you're a part of any of those left wing ideologies, it's less differentiated.
So it's fair to say
on a political spectrum whenever they're studying it.
So that
maybe there's like more unique organizations that specify differently. I don't know.
So you as a left-wing individual are part of the same ideology as the people who want to murder CEOs.
As much as someone who's right-wing anti-government because they're a libertarian is a part of an anti-government libertarian who attacks a cop.
Libertarians aren't anti-government.
Yeah, look at my point. I'm saying that even within the subcategorizations, I'm not going to say any right-winger who's anti-government is violent.
So the point is...
You want me to read you a definition because you really wanted it?
Of right wing?
You Googled it.
Let's get it.
All right. Right-wing ideology encompasses a broad range of political beliefs and values that prioritize tradition, hierarchy, individualism, and a limited role of government in certain spheres of life. The term right-wing originates from the seating arrangements in the French Revolution's Legislative Assembly, where conservatives sat on the right side.
So is Nick Fuentes right-wing then?
He would be really, really, really far right, yeah.
But he's not an individualist.
What?
He's not an individual.
Yeah, I didn't say exclusively individualist.
So let's go for it again.
So it starts with a broad range of political beliefs. Just like how on the left, there's a broad range of political beliefs. I think communists are stupid, but they're on the far left.
So what's the difference between the collectivist right and the collectivist left?
Tell me.
I'm asking based on your definition.
No, I'm asking you. You're the one who brought it up.
Do you not know? This is something I talk about in the show literally every single day. And the question is, do you know what you're talking about? Can you answer it yes or no?
Do I know what I'm talking about with the distinguishment of the government being
left collectivism versus right collectivism?
Yeah, I think left wing.
What distinguishes Nick Fuentes from Antifa?
Again, tell me. I think you have a great explanation.
I certainly do. I'm wondering, as you've made an argument, if you know what you're talking about.
How does that connect to my argument?
Do you know the difference between various ideologies among the right and the left? You've not been able to define it.
I actually know. I would say I'm not a master in the distinguishments between different ideologies within a side.
Then how can you claim the right is more violent?
Oh, how can you claim the left is more violent?
Because I know many of these different
feelings
factions
and your observations.
From my field reporting expertise and the reading of the research.
Well, then what research?
So if we distinguish, say, anarcho-libertarian, anarcho-communism, anarcho-syndicalism, we can talk about tankies, we can talk about social liberals, we can talk about traditional liberals, and we can talk about the political strategies used by each of these groups, and we can talk about how they've operated over the past 20 years, a combination of news reports, political studies, and field reporting from my personal experience.
Right.
And I want to talk about right-wing groups, I can do the exact same thing, as I've done this on the ground as well in many different countries. My question for you is, if you're going to assert the right is more likely to be violent because you read a press release from the University of Maryland, I'm asking you to define which groups.
I dug and I could not find any research, even that came from a right-wing institution that gave
which right-wing institution?
I'm saying I couldn't find one.
I agree. You can't find a right-wing institution that tracks.
Oh, there are right-wing institutions that do studies and stuff.
They don't track this.
Sure,
maybe because
there's studies. Do you see what's happening though? I think
you haven't done the research, and so you're saying
apparently you haven't even less than me. Sheesh.
I have 20 years of field reporting on the ground,
and every single time you come back to
give me substance, bro.
That's what I'm asking you. I'm saying I don't get caught up, especially like let me give you another example. Crime has been going down. I could go find instances of crimes taking place, right?
The FBI lied about it.
The FBI lied about that. That crime is not going down. They actually altered and omitted those statements. Not crime didn't go down.
It's not even an argument.
It actually went up.
You do know that the FBI revised the
for
crime
2022,
data.
not 2023 and 2024.
Right.
And we're seeing a really good trend on that front.
Do you know why? In
2022, it was not a huge revision.
Do you know why homicide is down?
Tell me.
I'm asking you, not just...
You're the one bringing up these questions. Homicides are down because less homicides are happening.
You're wrong.
Okay, go for it. Tell me. They're categorizing different or something.
No, it's because of cell phones.
And improvements in medical technology as well, and emergency rooms that have been able to make people...
What? No. How does
dying.
that? Wait, that's
People
good.
aren't dying.
That's good.
Who didn't say it was
Doesn't mean that
bad?
there aren't violent
Dude.
attacks.
Hold
Violent
on.
crimes at large are down over the last few years.
I think it's crime is down, but violent crime is
violent
up.
crime. Pull it up. Violent crime is down even with the revision in 2022. You have 2023, 2024.
The reason why I'm not going to argue
decrease
with
in
on the
violent
violent crime thing is crime has generally gone down, and I'm not here to argue it. The point I'm trying to make is you have a surface level, tepid view of a lot of these things.
Your view of political violence is a bunch of stories and wanting me to cite specific stories of right-wing attacks. That's just not interesting because that's not how we analyze data.
It just means you're a
examples.
credentialist and you don't know.
Like I just gave you another good example that y'all do a lot. Fox News will run all these provocative stories of crimes taking place. That gives me no information, no insight as to the actual broader
What do I have to
data.
do with Fox News?
I just use it as an example.
Yeah, but don't say y'all and talk about Fox News.
Again, is there a specific story you're talking about? It sounds like you're alluding to Laken Riley, or when you say that specifically, like Fox News is running with these stories that don't depict an accurate, representation of what's going on in the world.
No, I mean, no, just stories about crimes happening. There was a lot of focus for a while.
I don't
news
care about
not
that.
cover crime?
Let me tell you why I
You
asked you.
can cover it, but they never contextualize it with here's the broader crime.
The reason why I asked you the cell phone question is that when you have people who do like surface level stuff, you'll listen to a YouTuber say all Fox News is doing is pulling up like a story of an individual murder and then acting like it's out of control. That's something I refer to as a scaling problem. We know this as social media exacerbates knowledge of issues, making us feel like it's more likely to be occurring when it's actually not. So I have no problem saying that violent crime is down. There's a bunch of different institutions that argue, like, I think shoplifting has gone way up. So in some areas it shows that crime is up, but then violent crime is down. Some people say that's the crime that really matters. The cell phone point is actually really important because when you laugh at it and you seem confused by it, we're talking about multi-order.
I was confused why you would bring. I know that technological advancements impacts either crime in general, or how law enforcement reacts to it, or how medical professionals do. I just was laughing that you brought that up as if to refute my point about how anecdotes of crime doesn't debunk broader crime.
No, I asked you about the cell phone thing because people who are single order thinkers can't comprehend how something like a cell phone means homicide is down.
I can comprehend it.
It's actually really simple.
Yeah.
Although there are still stabbings, although there are still shootings, the fact that we can call 911 right away means the person is less likely to die. So you'll end up with a larger amount of attempted murders and aggravated robberies, but less homicides because people survive.
Phones haven't changed that much in between when Trump left office and when
I'm not
Biden
talking about that.
has been in office.
I'm talking about the general trend decline since the 2000s till today.
There's a lot of contributors. That's one of them.
Cell phones is the biggest contributor. It's actually rather surprising. People don't think about these things. Like one of the things that we think as to why crime has gone down is the removal of lead from gasoline. And then you might have someone be like, well, how does that happen? It's like, well, lead was actually frying people's brains in the air. And so to bring it all back, like with like the Nick Fuentes story and all that stuff, we take a look at the body of body politic 20 years. How many right-wing protests have there been over 20 years?
Depends how you define protest, but many. I mean, especially during the pandemic, there were a lot of anti-lockdown, anti-protests.
Over the past 20 years, you had the Tea Party protests.
Protests.
A dozen there too.
It depends on how you define it too. Like, there's some militias out there. They're 3%.
And herein lies the problem.
Proud Boy type groups.
And this is the problem with institutionalized left-right dichotomy. The American colloquial right has nothing to do with white supremacists or anti-government or sovereign citizen movements. Literally nothing. However, the mainstream liberal Democrat position incorporates these groups in some degree into their facets, notably in their protests and in their body politic. So when we say AOC, for instance, is aligned with the left, or how about this? Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren both said violence is wrong. No one should be doing this. It's horrible, but people can only push so far. As if to imply the healthcare CEO actually took an action that warranted the anger of people to be happy that he died. The right doesn't have that. So
they do.
So the Republican Party does not have that.
Like, why for months was Paul Pelosi mocked for having his head bashed?
Being mocked is different from advocating for killing.
Yeah, and respectfully too, January 6th was a big deal.
Yes, quite literally.
You think it's not encouraging political violence to laugh when it happens to your opponents?
No.
What about wanting to
I have
pardon
no
violent
problem.
January 6th rioters.
I have no problem with the left laughing when someone on the right is injured. I have no problem when the right laughs on someone on the left.
I know that's not true.
I think it's
know
both
that
crass.
if we pulled up a... Okay.
The left and the right, nobody should be mocking anybody.
Obviously, Trump is sending a message that such violence is not as bad as the left wants you to believe if he's going, ooh, you know, whatever he said about Paul, and the lies that were spread about it was a gay affair or something. That's obviously trying to.
It's very, very
decrease
different
the
from
importance
saying
of
that
it.
the CEO of a healthcare company did something to warrant the anger towards him, like the call for his murder. That's very different.
First of all, I don't necessarily agree with that argument, but also for me, I'm just going to be principled across the board because I'm also against that.
Did Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren say people can only push so far?
I'm sure they said something to that effect if you're bringing it up.
What did the healthcare CEO do to warrant anger? What did they do that pushed people so far that they would be advocating for their murder?
Oh, I'm not going to make an argument that I don't believe in.
I'm not saying you should argue for it. I'm
you
saying
can tell me.
Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren said murder is wrong. I'm paraphrasing, but you can only push people so far. That statement means the healthcare CEO did something that warrants people calling for their death.
I'd love to see the clip if you want me to break it down.
Yeah. Well, what they're alluding to is that the failure of the healthcare industries are responsible for their deaths, and therefore they are murderers.
And what I'm trying to explain to members of my own side, because I'm principled and
you can only Elizabeth Warren said you can only push people so far. I mean, that's right there.
Right, and so then I would say bad Elizabeth Warren.
But she's mainstream, like liberal. She's a prominent Is there?
Yeah, I'm not hearing that she's not advocating for Biden to pardon Luigi.
No, but I'm saying is there?
But you know who is going to pardon violent
people? Did Chuck
people?
Schumer say anything like that?
Did Trump say he's going to pardon?
Who's going to pardon violent people?
January 6th, the assault. He specifically got asked about those who attacked police officers. He said yes.
Yeah.
So
how long?
I mean, do you want to run through the Biden pardons and go through ones that
let me ask you a
don't
question.
sound
but do you see the distinguishment? I agree. There are going to be people on our respective sides we disagree with. Yours happens to be the leader. Well, I don't know how you identify necessarily, but yours would be the guy on your
how long
leader of your entire movement.
If someone attacked a cop, how long should they go to jail for?
I don't know. A while.
What's a while? Honest question.
4 years.
Totally depends on the details of the assault.
Okay, so they took a cop's shield from him and bashed him on the head with it.
I'm not going to give you a specific answer. I would have to look into the guidelines prosecutorily. I'd have to look at other
So
cases.
then you literally have no opinion on Trump's pardons then?
What? I'm saying that
Trump is
shouldn't
pardoning
intervene.
people on January 6th who are violent and attacked cops.
Yep. And some of them...
They've been
are
in jail for
specific-
3 years.
Okay.
How long should they be in prison for?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the individual cases. What some of them wanted to overthrow the government, so that would add some
That would mean
time,
you're
right?
neutral on Trump's pardon then.
No, because I think that the prosecutors who brought these cases, then brought them in front of a jury and got convictions should be respected, just like how I don't think that Biden should have pardoned his son. And even though these cases are far more serious, but I think those outcomes should be respected because I respect the justice.
More serious than.
And so my point is this: if you don't have a thought on how long they should be in prison, it's
Do you
fine
notice
to
that this
say
is what you do a lot. Though?
it's fine to say
Like
if we don't know how the pardon.
your argument fails, you're just gonna ask hyper-specific, slightly irrelevant questions to me.
How is it irrelevant?
Because I don't think it's relevant for me to figure out, because I didn't sit in these courtrooms and listen to the details of every case, exactly how long each one should
How
be
could
in.
you advocate for someone to be in jail if you don't know?
Well, I can tell you. Because Trump is saying we should subvert that process because he thinks what they did was patriotic and should then pardon them.
I don't. Has he specifically said it was patriotic to do that?
Yeah, he like salutes to that song they sang every single.
Well, like, is there a quote where Trump said that January 6th, people who attacked cops was patriotic? I genuinely
Because
don't
I
know
want to
that.
be fully honest, I will say I'm almost 100% certain he said that at some point.
That the people who attacked the police and were violent were acting patriotic.
Not in that order, but that the
I'm paraphrasing. I'm saying
January
like in
6th, defendant. And then as we dive more specifically into that.
I think if you're on the left or the right and you attack a cop, depending on the severity of the attack, like if we're talking about you're at a riot and you punch a cop or shove them, 6 months to a year is probably good.
NPR just reported on the 12th that President Biden commutes a sentence for 1,500 people. Some say he could do a lot more. 1,500 people.
No, but he already said that was wrong. That's fine.
No, not all those. I was saying Hunter Biden.
Luke, do you feel as though more Democrats were willing to justify the BLM riots than Republican elected officials were to condemn January 6th?
Well, interestingly, a lot of I will answer the left wing in a second, but a lot of the Republican politicians just changed their position. So initially it was like unanimously that was bad. Now almost all of them apologize for what happened that day. And we all, as I was explaining one of the times here, just we all missed the broader danger of trying to block the peaceful transfer of power that led up. January 6th wasn't the whole thing. That was the ending, and that was more individuals. But Trump's effort to prevent Biden from coming to office is what I really take issue with. But no, now a bunch of Republicans apologize for it, which is terrible. And then Democrats.
No, but the question was specifically for the Democrats.
And then I couldn't tell you.
Any Democrats who were
my guess would be
BLM writ large.
that more Republicans have apologized for the violence on January 6th than Democrats. But let me get to the caveat. Then Democrats who apologized for violence during BLM, very limited. They would all say violence is bad, but the cause was.
It's the voice of the unheard, like MLK. Remember?
But then I'd get to, I think it's a fair criticism to say maybe some were too quiet about the violence. Like none of them were out there saying this is fine.
Well, they were taking a knee. They were taking a knee. Many of them, Nancy Pelosi and some Democrat leaders, and they
would show up to a peaceful protest, and then as a part of that, people would be exploiting.
Maxine Waters with the whole, you have to go find them in restaurants, and you have to get up in their face.
Like that's not direct violence, but that's
encouraging.
Here's two phrases for you: respect the diversity of tactics, and snitches
Keep bringing that up.
And snitches get stitches.
What? Okay.
No, but then Kamala Harris also was posting a bail fund for BLM rioters, and
it's just weird. Y'all are the ones supporting the politicians who say this, like Trump.
Who? Say what?
Who justify violence?
Why did Trump justify violence?
I thought we just went through that.
We didn't. I asked you for examples, and you said, "I don't know." Don't just squint at me. Tell me what you think.
No,
It's like whenever you don't have an answer, you just get confused and say, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I'm genuinely confused.
Okay, let's try this
listening
again.
To me. Because
I am,
obviously, if
I ask you a question and you just don't answer, and then you go sophistry.
Because I only speak
ad hominem.
I only speak on. I haven't done ad hominem.
All you're doing is saying you do this, you do that, you do this. You're not actually giving me substance.
Oh no. I was saying I was just shocked that you didn't listen to my substance earlier. But So the January 6th. While I'm only going to speak on things I'm very informed on, so I'm not going to tell you exactly to the month that they should get. I do respect the fact that they were prosecuted in a court of law, and I don't think Trump to send a message to his base that what happened on January 6th was good, which is why he would do such a pardon, should be pardoning folks who were violent. Or
I think 3 years is long enough.
Yeah, and that's a wrong stance, but okay.
How is it wrong?
I just explained it to you.
No. You didn't. You said the court process should play out the way it is. My opinion on the amount of time should be served for a crime is not just wrong because you like courts.
No, I get that.
You need to explain why the time frame I'm asserting should be longer than 3 years.
No, I'm saying the default, you have to have overwhelming, compelling evidence that someone has been wronged to justify a president stepping in and saying, I'm subverting the justice system outcome. Do you agree with that premise?
No.
That's immoral.
So you're making a fascist argument.
A fascist argument?
You are making the fascist argument that the hierarchical structure of government is just and should be upheld regardless. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.